Hello and welcome to Three Geeks in a Pod. My name is Errol.
I'm Manda.
And I'm Ja-Mez.
And we talk about geek things, but we never seem to have a good intro.
No.
You keep talking at the beginning, and we try to...
Yeah, I keep talking.
Anyway, so we have... we have all sorts of news.
Yeah,
There's
tons of news that
All
James will
sorts
tell
of
us in just a moment.
What, you have a lot of news?
I had some tidbits, but I don't need to go through them necessarily.
Okay, well, what's your news?
My first news.
Well, before we start with that, I just want to say that I was watching, or having listened to the podcast from last week.
Yeah.
We have a bit of a problem because we keep making reference to things that other people don't know if they aren't already familiar with us. So,
like what?
Well, you kept mentioning your band, but you never said what your band was. Or you might have only ever said it in passing.
Oh, we're just assuming that people other than our friends are going to listen?
Yeah.
Debs and Errol. I'm in a geek improv comedy music duo.
So they do like concerts, and they they'll sing at bars, they'll sing at geek events, and they go to. You just came back from a con, and
Yeah, and if people didn't know, Errol and I are also in a kind of a comedy duo called We Tangent.
We're on the YouTube.
We're on the YouTubes. You can just find us by looking up We Tangent. That's the plug of the episode.
And if you guys don't know what Three Geeks in a Pod is, that's our podcast.
That we're saying right now.
And Ja-Mez is...
I'm just me. I don't have anything.
And I'm
important.
Errol, and then we have Man Pans.
And this podcast is actually
Episode 2.
a sequel, sort of spin-off from a previous podcast that we used to do called Errol and the Bald Guy, where it started with just me and Errol, but because Errol had been
Ja-Mez
working
wanted
with...
more women.
That's always a bonus. Because Errol had been working with Manda for so long, and they worked so well together, it was a great dynamic that we had included in the show, but because she wasn't part of the
I
name...
wish we had a human resources to complain to.
Oh boy.
Don't kick the mic with your, what is that?
M&M
Smarties?
socks?
Oh, M&M socks. Yes.
I'm not kicking the mic.
Anyways, because we wanted to include Manda as a full-time member and not just make it about me and Errol, we decided to start over, try and get a broader audience, and we renamed it Three Geeks in a Pod. So, that's us up to date. You can find all of this stuff online. Tangents on
Do you know what that would have been
YouTube.
great for?
What?
The first episode.
It would have been great for the first episode, but since we've already released the first episode and it's out there.
Oh, is it out there now?
It's out there. I
Oh.
launched it on Friday.
Didn't you see it?
No.
I'm glad you plugged it so thoroughly there, Manda.
Thanks, Man Pans.
You're welcome. What was I doing on Friday?
Ooh, dating.
No.
Dating?
No. I think I was with you on Friday.
We were?
Oh, yeah. No, I was with Leaf.
Ah, dating.
No.
Oh.
Practicing his lines.
Oh, that's right. He's married. Shame on you.
Okay, geek stuff.
So, Errol, to your news.
This is my news.
Yay,
You
something
know what this is?
something from Amazon.ca.
I know.
Which is
Fun,
exciting.
eh?
I always like
Yeah.
getting things from
So we think
Amazon.ca.
you should open it.
It's for me.
Yeah.
For you.
I'm what? This is awesome, but unfortunately, I just bought this on Blu-ray.
Oh, did
No
you just buy
way.
it on Blu-ray?
They just gave me a Muppets Christmas Carol, but that's okay because the Blu-ray didn't come with a DVD.
Oh,
and
there
for
you
whatever
go.
reason, I like to have a Blu-ray and a
You
DVD
know who
because.
bought that for you? I didn't buy it for you. My sister did.
Thank you very much, Lizette. I love you very much. This is awesome. Thank you so much, guys.
What was she listening to again? I can't remember that she heard. Might have heard about
One
that.
of the podcasts.
I'm
of
sure
the
I've
podcast.
talked about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's fantastic because
And so
I'm always happy to get Muppet stuff. That's amazing, guys.
So she went out and decided. I didn't even know. All of a sudden, it's like, okay, it's going to be at your house tomorrow. What are you talking about? Why? What's happening? And
That is
then all of a
amazing.
sudden, yes.
Uh,
So there you go.
So once again, thank you very
I
much,
feel
Lizette.
like Lizette is somebody who just grants the most far off wishes of people. Mine was like, I sadly said one day, oh, one of my favorite glasses broke, and it was from university, and I loved it. And what did she do? She hunted it down on eBay. It's
was
not even
amazing.
in production anymore. And she sent it to me. Ja-Mez says, oh, I want the Muppet Christmas Carol, but you can't find it anywhere. What does she do? She orders
it online.
and she sends it to him.
To be fair, when I did say that, it was before they even announced the Blu-ray release, but I'm always happy to have DVD and Blu-ray because, I don't always have access to a Blu-ray player, so... But yeah, thank you very much, Lizette. She also did help me with some personal stuff, getting some government forms signed and whatnot, because she can do that, and she's very good at forum stuff. So I have to thank her for that. And because of her helping me with that, I am finally going on my very first vacation in 11 days.
In 11, last vacation you had was 11 days ago.
No, the last vacation I had was when I was living in New Brunswick, and I went to Prince Edward Island when I was 5 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a far reach.
First time. Nice. Yay, vacation time.
Yes, I'm very excited.
Oh, cool.
Hi, Pepper.
He's not going on the vacation, but
I know,
yes, he's
but
listening.
I remember. I'm just excited somebody listened to this.
You know what? I laughed the other day because when I put up the thing on Facebook to remind people that the episode is out there, my dad responded by saying, "Why is the podcast audio?"
Oh, I've had a couple of what's a podcast again?
Well, my dad didn't understand what a podcast was, and the only thing he ever saw us put up that he ever watched were the little videos that I did, where I'd cut together all the clips from the actual episodes and put like pictures to it. So he saw those and he liked those, but he thought that was the extent of what a podcast was.
Yeah.
So when he tried to listen to the episode and it was nothing but audio, he was really confused.
Awesome.
Oh, poor Ja-Mez dad.
Okay.
But now he understands. I explained it to him, and
Huzzah. Now,
Okay.
sadly, poor Ja-Mez, sometimes I'll just go off and do things. And so he's trying to
confuses
talk.
me.
And then all of a sudden I leave and and he wants to say, "What are you doing, Errol? I'm in the middle of a talk."
but I also don't want to call out the fact that you walked away, but you still call out the fact that you just get up and walk away.
I noticed it was really loud. And so I was lowering you down.
Okay.
Woo.
Woo. Anyway, so yes, that was exciting. She sent that to me, and I was excited to get
I'm
it
very
to you.
excited. I'm very, very excited. Thank you very much.
The news.
That was it for the news?
No.
I was gonna
I thought you
say.
said you had tidbits.
I have tidbits.
What
I didn't know
tidbits
if...
do you have?
Well, you guys also had... you guys were at a con yesterday.
We were at a convention, the SF Contario, I think it was called.
Yep.
And,
Where Debs and Errol played.
yeah.
And you guys did panels, I understand?
We did.
Yep.
It was all exciting.
Errol was actually fairly good at keeping himself under control, especially during the Miyazaki panel. There was a Miyazaki panel, and Errol had to really contain himself.
It was so hard.
Somebody did really well, so...
So hard. I wanted to talk about so many things.
I know. But when you did talk, it was, to bring up really interesting points, so...
It was so hard.
It was fun, though. It was a smaller convention. It was only like 300 people there, I think, altogether.
I have no idea how many
Yeah,
people were there.
it was not many, but...
I liked it. No, I had a good time.
I
You had a good time.
I had a good time.
Was there a vendor's floor? Or?
There was a dealer's room, but it was actually more of a literary convention. Like, they say
Oh.
it was a sci-fi convention, but there was a lot of authors there, and they all... the dealer's room was pretty much just full of books being sold.
And my CD.
And CD,
They
couple
always
board
have to put
games.
the CD. We're going to have to get cards for this, so when you guys do the CD stuff, you can just put cards on the table and let people know that they can listen to.
Yeah.
I mean, since Debs is on the podcast as well on occasion.
Yep. No, you don't have to justify it.
No, I want to take every opportunity I can to plug this. And
Yep.
you guys are always out at stuff. I'm a recluse. I just stay at home. And
So am I, but...
Man Pans is out stuff. Dayton.
No.
No?
No. Got depressing really fast. Let's hear Ja-Mez's news.
Well, let's start with follow-ups to our big Star Wars discussion last week.
follow-ups?
Usually when there's a big announcement like that, there's all kinds of rumors and whatnot.
Yeah.
But there's been some actual, real tidbits of news coming out this week.
What is it?
First of all, they've signed a writer.
Yep. I saw that.
A very important writer, an Oscar-winning writer, Michael Arndt.
Okay.
He's famous for Toy Story 3, Little Miss Sunshine, and he wrote the upcoming Hunger Games sequel, Catching Fire.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
he's
He's got some cred under his belt. From what I saw, a lot of people online. I'm not too familiar with a lot of the stuff he did. I've got some issues with Toy Story 3. I didn't see Little Miss Sunshine, but
Little Miss Sunshine
it's
is
so
really
good.
good.
I hear that.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Elsewhere also, both Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford were approached this week by different people in the media asking if they were going to do the later chapters of Star Wars and they wanted to include Han Solo and Carrie and
As the parents.
Princess Leia. Were you going to be involved? And according to Entertainment Weekly, Harrison Ford seemed positive about it, but we never know how he stands. He's kind of like the Bill Murray of them, so it's
right.
he'll say yes one week and then the next week he might say no, and we'll see about that. But Carrie Fisher stated, yes, sure, wouldn't you, when asked, will you return? We also have some people who were approached about directing, not by the studio, just by people asking because fans are creating short lists of people that they'd want to see direct it. One of the big names that's been on the short list since the 70s, since the original trilogy, was Steven Spielberg, who, even in the 70s, he was going to do Return of the Jedi way back in the day, but because of an issue with Lucas leaving the Directors Guild, the Directors Guild wouldn't let Spielberg do a non-Directors Guild film. So he never got to do a Star Wars film, and he said he's not really interested anymore. That's more of George's thing. They also approached Zack Snyder and Quentin Tarantino, who both also said no.
Not Zack Snyder.
I say no to either one of them.
He's gonna slow everything down and then speed it up. Sorry.
Not only that, but his stories lack any sort of real depth or anything, too.
Or if they asked John Woo, then there'd be Alien.
Well, I'd like to see some people who are actually doing sci-fi try and handle it. Someone like J.J. Abrams or with less lens
that
flares.
Might be really
or Joss Whedon.
Would be interesting.
J.J. would be cool, considering what he did with Star Trek, which always felt, the new Star Trek felt a little more Star Wars anyways. I think he'd be really cool. He needs to come up with better endings to his stories, but I also like the idea of Joss Whedon, who has been a big name that's been thrown around quite a bit.
He's gonna kill everyone.
No, but he's not writing it. They're only directing it.
Oh, but he's gonna push to kill everyone.
To be fair, his involvement in Avengers, the big death in that, wasn't his call. It was the studio who wanted that to happen, not Joss Whedon. So you can't blame that one on him. But yes, he does unfortunately have a very high death toll in his media.
Not that that's a bad thing.
No, in the right circumstances. Like, I agree with his in Serenity.
Serenity, yeah.
The deaths in that had a very important impact, and considering it was quite possibly going to be, and to this date has been, the last chapter of that story, you want that big finale to have the gusto of, everybody could go down. So you want that surprise death right before that. You want it to look like, this could really be the end of the story.
Yeah.
So I totally understand. I know it's unfortunate that the characters who died happened to be two of my favorites, but both of them had major impact on the story and major impact on the emotion of it. So I can't always disagree with Errol's playing with his leg and Manda's getting distracted by it, which is distracting
Sorry,
me.
he's been picking at the chair.
Are you bored, Errol?
No, I'm listening.
Are you listening?
Yes.
The paint's
If
coming
I have
off
to make
the
sure
chair.
that for me to talk, I have to keep other aspects of my body doing other things.
Oh my god.
So long as you keep your clothes on, I'm okay with that. Little news tidbit number 2 was that DC announced this week, well, Vertigo specifically, which is a subsidiary of DC, announced this week that they're going to end long-running Hellblazer with issue 300, which might not mean anything to anybody. Hellblazer is a really popular comic from the 70s, which is, it's sort of an occult sci-fi supernatural series.
Is that the guy with the pins?
No, that's Hellraiser. Hellblazer is...
Okay,
did you ever see the movie Constantine?
Yes,
Yes, that was based on the Hellblazer comic. John Constantine is the main character in that.
Oh, okay.
And he comes across guys like Swamp Thing every once in a while, and he's got a lot of exchanges with the more supernatural aspects of the DC universe.
Okay.
But since they've been trying to make DC much more superhero-ish, he's sort of been separated into their Vertigo series, which is a little more mature, a little darker. And they announced this week that they're going to... Hellblazer's going to end with issue 300. They're going to start over again with Constantine #1, which has brought up a lot of talk in the industry lately about the role of long-running series in comics these days, because it seems like a lot of them are coming to an end and starting over again with #1s, because there's this prevailing idea that the only time people take interest in comics is when there's a small number on the cover, because they feel like people don't want to jump onto a series that's got 300 issues. They want to jump into a series that's got 5 issues.
That's definitely true of me, actually. Because I can't really... If someone tells me, oh, you have to... Like, if X-Men, for instance. I've always been interested...
There isn't an X-Men series right now that's above 20.
Okay,
oh, no, that's not true. Astonishing X-Men.
I just know, like there's so much
but...
comic history. Like, where do you even begin? It was like when I started Doctor Who, actually. One of the reasons I never started it before was, like, there's, like, 30 years of this show. Where do you start? Like, I don't want to watch the whole thing. And...
Well, see, I've always taken issue with this because I find that, first of all, it punishes the fans that have been there for a long time and have followed the series, especially since a lot of these restarts tend to kind of... They're not full reboots, but they kind of call quits long-running stories and kind of end things that have been going on for a long time. Like, for instance, the announcement that we talked about last week, where Spider-Man's ending, they're starting with a new Spider-Man.
Poor
Me, a fan of
Spider-Man.
someone who's been following Peter Parker's Spider-Man since the early 300 issues, I feel kind of betrayed that they're canceling my character and starting over with somebody new. I know it's going to come back eventually, but at the same time, I feel like their constant interest in trying to gain new fans comes at the expense of existing fans, especially those who've been around for a long time.
Well,
Yeah,
And-
you might like the new Spider-Man, man pan.
Not likely,
who
but
knows? On the other hand, though, I mean, on a storytelling level, I guess, how far can you go with a particular series? Like,
well, that's the thing
mean-
is comics are cyclical. They keep coming up. Like, even if you have a 30-year run, the story hasn't been always continuous for that 30 years. There have been different points in time where even if the issue is like 250, there's still jumping on points for new fans. There's still times when the story kind of restarts and resets, and not to the point where they negate everything that happened before it, but it allows you an opportunity as a new reader to jump on. But I don't buy into this idea that the high number series scare off fans, because I started when it was, again, in the 300s, and I just started picking up issues. And not being all that knowledgeable about what was happening kind of encouraged me to go and find out more, to pick up previous issues, to try and hunt down issues in between issues, to try and figure things out. And that's what got me into collecting, was that constant need to discover more about the story. And I think that's something that when they're constantly doing reboot after reboot after reboot, you kind of lose that. Because the story only continues for, 6 months to a year. And even in the Marvel trends, like, most of the content that's been relevant to the Marvel Universe is about 10 years old. That's it. And it's just been one continuous storyline from there. Even then, they start over every few years, and there's all kinds of new jumping on points every time they have a big new event. There's, okay, we're starting all these books over again. They've started Avengers over like 4 times.
Debs and Errol have a webcomic that's daily.
And see, what number are you at?
We are almost to 500.
There you go. Now,
That's
when you get to
crazy,
500,
eh?
are you going to start over at 1?
No.
I
to
wouldn't
get
call
new
it one
readers?
with complex storylines.
It's super complex.
Super
It involves
complex.
my life.
Your
Our
life,
lives, in
most
fact.
of your life is, I like food.
Yeah. And you guys are confused.
Yeah, that's about as complex as it gets.
We're only confused because you seem to have like a very ADD sort of approach to your, anything you do. So the
I
idea of
gotta
having
get people
constant
to-
ongoing
Ooh.
storylines, even the storyline you're supposed to have for the comic, you haven't done in like 300 issues.
Which storyline was I supposed to... Oh, the Debs and Errol
Yeah, the
comic.
Debs plot, the reason you started the Debs and Errol comic to begin with, the white panel comics that actually have a storyline to them, you've kind of ended that and just gone
Well, it
with
ended.
your daily adventures. How did it end? The band is still going.
The band is still going, yeah. We're still going. I'm still going.
And
That's-
Debs only ever like occasionally appears in her own comic.
I don't see her. And she doesn't give me anything to write about.
I also miss the Debs comics when she would draw them
Yes.
on weekends.
If you can convince her to do that, I'm quite
If
happy
I could
to put
convince Debs to do anything, it would be a miracle. Debs has her own mind. She doesn't want to hear what I have to say.
Poor Debs. Poor Debs. So yeah, no, I have no qualms with having Debs in the comic, but she's just
Yeah.
busy. Poor Debs. Although I think I'm going to put her in the comic tomorrow, and I have been
You
putting
think
it.
you are? You did a whole convention with her this
I know,
weekend.
I know.
When are you going to talk about the podcast in the comic?
The podcast and oh yeah, that's right. That was supposed to be last week as well. Right?
Last year?
Last week. Usually, what we do for the 500th or every centennial thing, we get other people to draw. Are you going to draw a comic for me?
If I have time. I think I missed the 400 one
You did. Why don't you draw a 500 one and make it this epic about a podcast?
because I'm not that great about drawing.
That's fine. You can do it. You can put Debs in it. It can be just Debs.
Did you see my Debs character that I drew
I
before?
know, it was great.
No, it wasn't.
fine.
It was terrible.
What are you talking about? No, it was good. No, it's better than mine. It was like hand drawn and everything. I say go for it.
Oh boy. Anyways,
News.
Will you draw
News?
one?
Nope.
Come on, you've drawn a comic before.
I haven't drawn a comic before.
Yes, you have.
Stick figures.
It's all good. That's
what else
all
is
I care about.
XKCD?
No.
Yeah, no, it's good. Come on, you have to draw a comic. Debs and Errol comic. Then you can put Debs in it.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
What? No, I didn't mean.
Yeah, you said yes.
See?
I didn't mean saying yes to that.
That comment from our peanut gallery.
Yeah.
So the third little bit of news that we have is just something short that I noticed today and I thought was kind of cool. It's been long expected it was announced a long time ago that this season, a very prolific writer was going to do an episode of Doctor Who that a lot of people have been waiting for. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Neil Gaiman?
Neil Gaiman is supposed to be doing an episode of Doctor Who.
Oh, didn't he already?
He did one, but he's doing another one this season.
Okay.
And it's...
Oh, no, wait, that was William Gibson. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Stephen King did an X-Files. He directed one, I think. He didn't write it.
And William Gibson did one, too.
I don't know who that is.
He's an author.
Yeah.
Neuromancer.
Okay. We've already established that I'm not very good with sci-fi authors. I've gotten a lot of ridicule for not knowing who that lady was who died, and then... You don't remember. From, our first episode.
Oh.
I can't even remember her name now.
That was a long time ago.
Yes, it was. It was almost a year ago. We've almost been at this a year.
Wow.
Whoa.
Which is great for people who've only listened to 2 episodes.
That's okay. We don't really focus on anything, so
yeah,
it's okay to start.
And if you guys
we've rebooted. Here
Yes.
you go on, and then we've rebooted.
Yeah, we have, I guess.
And we branded. It's like we're creating a whole new character.
It's a new comic.
And what if
To
people
be
are
fair,
like,
our storyline is continuing, though.
Yes. Well, yes, but with Manpan, she's
Yes.
new.
Yes.
Yes.
Hooray.
So we've gone from Teen Titans to the Outsiders.
So Neil Gaiman's writing a new Doctor Who episode.
Yes, he's writing a new Doctor Who episode, so there's been a lot of speculation about what it's going to be about, and we found out that it's going to be about the Cybermen, but this past week, the script for it was found in a cab because an actress had accidentally left it there.
Oh,
Now,
no.
Yeah, no information, as far as I can tell, has leaked from it, but the woman who found it promised not to leak anything, immediately contacted all kinds of media outlets, including MTV News, to try and get a hold of Neil Gaiman and give the script back.
Oh my gosh.
So she's being touted around the internet right now as the Good Samaritan.
That's nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. Someone who isn't, out
Yeah.
for themselves just to make a quick buck off of this news. And
Right. That's nice.
Yeah.
It's lucky that she found it probably, and I loved The Doctor's Wife last year, actually, when...
that was actually one of my least favorites, sadly.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it.
I love the idea of developing a personality for the TARDIS, but...
I love that personality, though. It was awesome.
the person...
You're wrong. Anyway. I'm joking.
No, you aren't.
So that's it for my news. I don't know if you guys have anything else.
We now know John Singer.
We now know John Singer.
I'm glad to be part of one of the many thousands that know John Singer. I'm excited, guy.
Yeah. Do you know who John Singer is? I didn't before.
Brother of Brian Singer?
No,
I have no idea.
He's this guy who just is... You explain it.
It's hard to explain.
You're better at explaining than I am.
Apparently, everybody knows John Singer.
Everybody knows John Singer, apparently, and he was the guest of honor at this convention we went to.
So it was exciting because we got to meet him. So now we know him.
Not only did we get to meet him, he came to the Debs and Errol concert and freaking loved them.
I hope he liked us. He's a really nice guy.
He's a very nice guy.
Very smart guy.
And
This reminds me when my dad would drag me to fishing tournaments and I get autographs from fishermen. I have no idea who the hell they were.
it was very nice, and he was very positive about everything.
Yes,
It was
and
great.
And he's very intelligent.
Very intelligent. Yeah.
Good.
He built his own ukulele.
Apparently he has a YouTube vid where he builds a laser in 5 minutes.
Yeah, we gotta
That's
look that
kind of
up.
cool, actually.
Yeah. So
Anyway, so we had the con was fun. Did we get? Oh yeah, and what brought it up is because Neil Gaiman knows John Singer.
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yes,
So
everybody knows
Well,
John.
Neil Gaiman retweeted Errol.
Long time ago.
long
yes.
time ago.
Still,
Neil
that's-
Gaiman
that's where-
retweeted Lynn of Monkey Man.
Really?
Yes. Oh, you're giving us cookies, Zoe.
Ooh, I'll
Here,
take a cookie.
cookies.
Thank you. Are they ginger
Just hold
snaps?
it
Or?
here. I think they're for us.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks, Zoe.
They're still warm.
Oh, we each get
Anyway,
two.
yeah. So I think
Oh, they're warm. I'm
they're
sorry. I'm gonna need a
warm.
moment.
they were just made right now. So I think Lynn tweeted Neil Gaiman on his birthday or something like that, and how he saw Amanda Palmer in concert.
Oh,
So he tweeted back saying thank you or something like. So she was excited.
I would be.
Yeah. No.
And Neil, if you're listening to this podcast, Errol and Manda absolutely love you. So make sure you retweet this podcast too,
laughs
sir.
with a mouthful of cookie. They're good cookies.
We could say all sorts of bad things about him because we could be rest assured he wouldn't be listening.
I don't think he'll be listening, but one can hope.
We do have a song in the musical, and I'll say this right now because I know not too many people are listening.
We're so bad on this. Anyway, they could
Hey, I'm
be.
gonna try and get this audience broader. I know we have like 20
No,
listeners,
now,
but
let me know
did you
when-
see how high the likes went on Facebook when I launched it? Within like the first 5 hours, we were at 15 likes.
Oh, nice.
Wow,
Yeah.
you go.
See,
Now it hasn't moved in 2
you have
days.
to tell
but-
me because I can't. My feed always pushes things out of the way, so I don't always know when you post things.
Why
Okay.
don't you put your Ja-Mez on like an important feed list?
Can you do that?
Yeah, you can.
I don't.
Oh!
Well, it's not me that like. I usually what I'll do is I'll respond or I'll make a post on the fan page, and then I will. What's the term on Facebook? It's not
for
retweet
example,
on Facebook.
I have a
but-
list that I put Karen on, and it's called the Feral List of Fun. But I actually brought it down to just Feral List because I didn't want the name too long.
Need more cookies.
Oh yeah, we'll need more cookies, please. And so now, anytime she updates it, I will see that there is one notification.
I do get notices from people that I have put like in an important.
Yeah, don't you have an
category and
important? Am I in your important list?
I don't have an important
Why
list.
aren't I
If I-
in your important list?
I didn't know it could exist.
Yeah,
My phone will be
why?
going off every 5 minutes.
Am I in your important list?
No, because my phone will be going off every 5 minutes.
No,
it
he doesn't
won't.
post on Facebook
I
a
don't
lot.
post
No.
stuff personally, actually. All cookies. Thank you. These are good.
These are very good.
No, I actually try not to spam my
Thank you.
personal Facebook too much because then I would be spamming every day. If I put up Nanotunes, Debs and Errol, 3 Geeks in a Pod, Nano Musical, they would kill me.
Well, I'm more than happy for you to spam out the 3 Geeks in a Pod stuff.
News.
Okay, sorry. You can tell your news now, man. Pants.
I don't have
Don't you
news.
have any news?
No, I saw Robert Sawyer again.
Oh yeah, so
That was-
why don't you tell that story?
So there's this sci-fi author named Robert J. Sawyer. And the first time I met him was at this. Actually, it was my very first convention. It was in Sarnia, of all places, and it was a literary convention. And so I met all these authors, and I had no idea who he was. But I talked with him for a bit, and it was fun. And then I went home to Toronto, and I told my friend Erica about it, and she basically freaked out when I told her I met Robert J. Sawyer, and she was like, "What do you mean? You could have got things signed for me?" And she was really angry at me that I got to meet him, and I had no clue who he was. And it's just since then, it's kind of become a tradition that I'll run into him every once in a while and
Give him a big wet kiss.
nope, and I won't recognize who he is, and then when I do, I act really, really awkward. Ja-Mez is
As opposed to
taking
recognizing
photos.
who he is, and then acting awkward.
No, it's weirder when you like. So like the next time I ran into him was at a theater show, and he had written the play, and I saw him in the audience, but I thought he was an actor friend of mine because he looked almost exactly the same, and it was like, oh, is this video? And so I went up to him and I called him Phil. And then I said, "Oh, are you an actor? I could have sworn you were an actor." And he's like, "Nope, I'm a writer." And we had like this 2-minute conversation on how he wasn't an actor. And then I walked away, and then I realized, oh crap, that was Robert J. Sawyer. And then I ran into him again at this convention. He came. He wasn't a guest. He just was there for the fun of it. And again, I didn't recognize him. And I just saw him. I saw him look at me like, oh, sort of. I don't think he recognized me either, but it was still like. He looked at me, and then I was sort of like, "Oh, hello, strange man," and then I walked
said
away.
strange man?
I did not say strange man.
Hello, strange
I was just
man.
sort of like,
I'm single.
"Hi, okay, I'm gonna go over here now." And then it wasn't until later I saw his name tag, and I was like, "Oh crap, again!" I still didn't recognize him.
Poor man pants.
So now I have cookie crumbs in my hand.
Thank you, man pants.
Sorry, that was a boring story.
No,
but-
it wasn't a boring story. You always think all your stories are boring. We'll tell you.
Thanks, Errol.
We're here
You're for me.
you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was my first. Actually, that was probably my first Gen Con, I guess you could call it.
Yeah.
Because I've never ever been. I don't usually go. I mean, I've been to a Philk convention concert, but I haven't ever been to a con before.
Oh yeah, apparently I'm part of Felk now.
You are. Woohoo! And she sang a song in a Philk.
No! You need to know, it was horrifying. I blocked that memory out.
It was awesome.
It was terrible.
It was good. What are you talking about? So now she is a
They
regular
gave me a
contributor
ribbon.
to the Philk.
Regular contributor.
There you go. You can come and you can sing and you can dance. Sunshine lollipops.
I'm going to end you. Hi, James.
I'm gonna go
Hi.
get a coffee.
Okay.
You guys talk.
About what?
Oh my goodness. No, it was a good convention though. The nice thing about smaller conventions actually is that they had a whole room.
You're not overwhelmed by thousands of people.
You're not overwhelmed by thousands of people. It is a little more intimate, and you can get to know the guests because they're not just being shuffled around from panel to panel and being accosted by fans. They actually are willing to talk to you, and I got to talk to a couple of authors, which was really neat. And the other cool thing actually was they had a whole like con suite. It was called. And normally I thought that was.
Oh, is this the food?
Yeah. So I thought it was just for the guests, you know, like that's where the
Yeah.
guests go and rest. And
Not Errol.
No, it was for everybody. Anybody from the convention could go to this room.
Well,
And
see,
and it
the
wasn't
better story would have been if it had been for the guests, yet Errol still went in for it anyway.
well, somebody told me like, "Oh, there's free food in there." And I expected like celery and carrots and pita bread and hummus or something, right? You go in there and it was like Moroccan stew and
That was good.
yeah,
There was
and
pulled pork on Friday night.
oh, there was pulled pork on Friday.
Ew.
Like it was good food. What do you mean?
Pulled pork was awesome.
That's like-
Although you didn't get a chance to go to it Saturday night. It was crazy because on the Saturday night I was packed. There were so many things I wanted to go to. There
Yeah.
was a Miyazaki panel.
Yeah.
And then there was a concert that I wanted to go to
Mm-hmm.
with Kari. Kari's the ukulele player that's on our musical. Then there was my concert, the Debs and Errol concert. And then we had a panel right after that.
Yeah.
So that was 5, 6, 7, and 8. And so
It was pretty much taken over. Like the evening was taken over. There was supposed to have been a dance, but it got canceled.
there were so many things happening that night.
Yeah,
And then I think
so-
we had Open Filk at 9. No, ukulele jam at 9 and then Open Filk at 10.
Yeah.
That's where the man pan sang.
Yeah. That happened. So yeah, I guess that's all our news. I guess we've been talking enough. We can go on to our actual topic now, right?
So part 2.
Part
Sure.
2.
Part 2.
Did you want to sing?
I'm not singing, no.
Did you want me to sing?
When we eventually come up with a tune.
Huzzah! Maybe.
But hey, I need your help with some of the lyrics, because the
That's
lyrics
fine,
aren't
yeah.
complete, and I'm not really good at writing lyrics.
That's okay. We'll look at it.
Okay, so
So we wanted to talk this week about Avatar. And not the James Cameron Avatar, the
No.
Nickelodeon Avatar, the much better
Avatar: The Last Airbender.
And Legend of Korra, which
Yes.
unfortunately changed names several times during its production. So I'm going to go ahead and say that this is probably going to be very spoiler heavy.
Yeah.
Because,
Oh, what?
especially if we're going to talk about Korra.
Season 2?
No.
Oh, okay.
If we're going to talk about Korra, you kind of have to talk about, or at least spoil the events of Avatar: The Last Airbender, because Korra kind of depends on you having seen the last few episodes of Airbender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Avatar is basically this world removed from ours where there exists 4 basic distinct cultures. They call them nations. And each of them are kind of centered around a different kind of bending. Bending is, of course, the ability to manipulate different elements: water, air, earth, and fire. Each one has its own separate distinct kingdom, and each one has its own separate distinct culture. Now, the cool thing about the show is that a lot of it's sort of based on, even though it's kind of set in its own world, it's based very much on elements from our world, so there's a lot of familiarity. For instance, the Water Tribe are very Eskimo Inuit sort of styled. The Airbenders are very like Tibetan monk kind of style. the Fire Nation is very Japanese and the Earth Kingdom is very Chinese. And there's, of course, some variations on that. Not everybody fits into those molds, but by and large, those are sort of the dividing cultures. And a lot of it's very based on different styles of kung fu. So the bending looks a lot like martial arts, which they would rotoscope painstakingly, having watched actual martial artists, and they had, martial artist consultants on the show. So not only is it a great story and a very thought out, well plotted sort of world, there's also a lot of really good action in it.
Yeah, for sure. Now,
the series kind of begins with...
Thank you for your input.
Well, I'm just sort of setting the stage for anyone who...
agreeing with him. What is wrong with that?
No, I'm bugging, man.
The series is about... the first series is about an airbender named Aang who discovers that he is the Avatar. The Avatar is the spiritual representation of all four elements, kind of put into one body per every generation or so. Now this... We've kind of lost Errol.
Get it together, man.
You're red and crying.
But I'm holding it in.
I'm not. Okay, sorry, where were we?
That's all right. Now, in the show, basically, each nation has its own form of bending, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of crossover. There is on occasion, but for the most part, it's pretty centered around their own culture. The only person who can bend all four elements is the Avatar.
Right.
And every so often, once one Avatar dies, he's reincarnated into the next Avatar. One series ends...
Oh, for God's sake!
It wasn't even that funny.
I don't even know what happened.
It's because I drank Bailey's.
Oh, God. And 8 cookies. You're full of sugar and alcohol.
Oh, dear. Where were we?
Okay.
So one series sort of begins with about 100 years before the beginning of the first series. The previous Avatar discovers that the Fire Nation is sort of becoming very militant, and they're taking their sort of industrial revolutionized military and trying to take over other countries. And when the Avatar kind of steps in to try and stop it, because the Avatar is sort of the arbiter of the world and trying to keep peace, trying to keep balance between all the elements, he ends up dying trying to save an island from an erupting volcano. He is reborn as Avatar Aang, a airbender. Fortunately, Avatar Aang discovers that he is the Avatar and finds out that because of his destiny as the Avatar, he's not allowed to pursue the dreams that he has. And because of this, he runs away from home, ends up in a storm, and ends up frozen in ice for 100 years, during which time the Fire Nation kind of takes over.
Everything changed.
Everything changed.
When the Fire Nation attacked.
Yes. So they end up wiping out they end up wiping out all of the airbenders and a lot of the waterbenders. The only thing that's standing in their way is the Earth Kingdom, which is this giant island of all kinds of different kingdoms and cultures and whatnot. So it's a really big battle to try and get rid of them. Fire Nation is relatively smaller than them. So the crux of the series is about Aang trying to stop the Fire Nation from destroying the Earth Kingdom.
Which kind of doesn't really make sense, because you would think that the Fire Nation's fire, the opposing element of fire is water.
Right.
Or the opposing
but
element of
they've
air
managed to wipe out like half of the world's waterbenders by taking away all of the southern tribes' waterbenders, and at the end of the first season, they're kind of trying to take over the northern water tribe as well.
What happened to the southern tribe? Why is
the southern tribe is still there, but
No, I know, but I mean, you would think that, technically water is stronger than fire. Just like, I mean, it's...
But the Fire Nation was also industrialized, whereas they were still sort of primitive in the... They had better weapons. They also came in larger numbers. So even though water can outdo fire, numbers tend to help your warfare. So it didn't take much to kind of, and they would kind of pick off the waterbenders one by one.
No, they attacked the Air Nation.
Yeah, they wiped out the Air Nation first, but they over generations sort of picked off the rest of the waterbenders in the Southern Water Tribe. So the beginning of the series, 2 kids from the waterbending tribe, the last waterbending. The last waterbender from that tribe, Katara, and her brother Sokka discover Aang and kind of join him on his adventures trying to stop the Fire Nation. Mm-hmm. And that's the crux of the series.
Yeah, so I think we all come into this as huge fans of the series.
Yeah.
Now, did you guys watch it after it had aired or during the airing?
I watched it after.
I watched it about 6 months after the last season had aired because the last bit of this last season didn't air until much later.
Okay, because that's cool, because I actually watched it while it was airing.
When
Did
you
you?
were a kid, you were a baby man pants.
I was a baby university man pants. And
With your friends or by yourself?
with my friends, actually.
Cool.
I think it was we found it we found it randomly on one Saturday morning when we were all just sitting in the living room trying to figure out what to watch. We're like, I don't know, this is a cartoon, and we ended up like really liking it, and so we watched it weekly whenever it aired, and then it got to the point where there were no more episodes, or like season 1 had ended, and that was when there were huge gaps actually between all of the episodes. Like they might in the second season, I think they might have aired like 3 episodes, and then it'd be another 3 months before you saw another one.
Which isn't unusual for a lot of animation.
Which
these
isn't
days.
unusual, but it was just interesting because like there were points where it was like they'd leave it on this huge cliffhanger, and
Yeah.
you're like, that's it. It's another 6 months now before I can actually find out what happens.
Well,
if
to
that.
be fair, the animation in the show is really top notch.
Oh, it's very
not
good.
just
Very
not just
good.
is the animation top notch, but the story and the plotting is really top notch as well.
No, everything.
So
The characters are great. Everything about this thing is
and
great.
I mean, for anyone who starts and picks up the show now,
For anyone...
stick with the first season
Yeah.
because it may seem like a silly, ridiculous Nickelodeon show when it starts, but by the end of the first season, you're going to see some real development in the characters, some real twists in the plot, and like the series really matures as it goes on. So by the end of the first season or series, it's almost a completely different, not completely different, but very different show tonally than it was to begin
It's
with.
funny. Anybody that I've met has really liked the show. You don't
Yeah.
really find anybody that says, nah, I didn't like it.
Avatar,
I find
whatever.
anyone who hasn't liked it didn't give it enough of a chance.
I
It
don't think
does.
I've met anybody.
The first
I
couple
have.
of episodes are like, and I find this with any show though, not just with animated shows and such, not just with Avatar, but it's like they do need a few episodes to find their footing and to find out.
Like the musical.
To be fair, I don't think it's just that they needed to find their footing. I think the characters also needed to find, I don't want to say their character, but Aang, especially at the beginning of the series, is really kind of annoying. And it takes a couple episodes for him to kind of figure out that he can't run away from this destiny he has. And once he starts to accept that, that's when the story really starts to move forward.
Well, what I liked actually was that the series wasn't afraid to take time to actually. I mean, the audience knew that Aang was the Avatar, but
And you're eventually going to see him, square off against the Fire Lord. And he
the
was going to
kids
be
didn't
fully
really
realized.
know until that second episode, I don't
Yeah.
think. And not only that, but they didn't know why he stopped or why he ran away or what happened until like the third episode. Like they really weren't afraid to take the time to just sort of develop that out.
Not only
which
that,
was
but
kinda nice.
it took Aang a long time to develop as a character, and all the other
Yeah.
characters a while to develop. I mean, you eventually even saw like characters switch sides, and you saw characters who sort of fit very stereotypical roles become much broader, more important characters as the series progressed. Well, you guys both look kind of
Lots
shocked.
of noise. I was shocked because Errol's shocked.
Oh,
Keep talking.
okay. Okay, you completely made me lose my train of thought, though.
Okay, I was gonna say, it's like a Kajin Noan. My Iron of Green Gables, where they take their time.
They take their time.
It's
We were
the-
talking about more Miyazaki stuff last night.
Yeah.
Because Errol couldn't talk about it during the panel.
Awful. There's so much I wanted to say.
Well, that's the great thing about the series is even though it's American animation,
It's good.
it's very
very
influenced
good.
by Japanese animation, which if you watch any like very serious Japanese anime that isn't like a short run, something like a Naruto or a Bleach or any series that, I mean, Naruto's been going on for 10 years and the story hasn't stopped developing that entire time.
Like Full Metal Alchemist.
Yeah, like Full Metal Alchemist, any of those series, like the characters are continually developing and growing, and their power set will grow, and whatever else they're doing develops. The story becomes more complex, and even though Avatar is only 3 seasons, it very much borrows from that. So taking its time to develop these characters, it it makes the characters feel a little more real, but you also get to know the world a bit better too, and you get to see different sides of the war. And it's not always like a black and white thing where the war is Fire Nation bad, everybody else good. There's good and bad on all sides.
Yeah.
There's a great plot in the second season where they go to the Earth Kingdom to meet the leader of the Earth Kingdom, and there's an entire contingent. Yeah, there's an entire contingent of guards who protected him from knowing anything about the war and are calling the shots, who end up becoming opposition for Aang especially during the third season when he's trying to. During the second season when he's trying to find Appa, and then during the third season when he's trying to overthrow the Fire Nation.
Right.
So it's not always just simple divisions of good and evil, and it's even characters who are evil end up becoming not evil, and
And they're releasing the graphic novels now.
Yeah.
Well, I think they're done.
No.
Wasn't the third one? I thought the third one was the last one.
Oh, it's not. It didn't end like no.
Okay, it was only supposed to be 3 graphic novels.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, they ended on like a that it's going to continue.
I hope so, because the story hasn't been developing as quickly as I was hoping it would in that. Yeah. Especially if it was going to end on the third one, but
no, it's interesting. Like, you get so much development and everything, and yet the one thing I really like, and everybody I talk to about the series likes, is that it does have a definitive ending.
Yeah.
And I did wonder that while watching it. Like, obviously the series is building up to this big battle with the Fire Lord and that, and trying to defeat him, but after that's done, where do you go with the series? And I think it is kind of a braver move to just end it. Because a lot of the time studios tend to cave to fan pressure and about, well, they're great characters. Everybody loves the characters. They don't want them to go, but, the story does have an end.
So yeah, I agree. It was a bold move when they eventually announced that they were going to do a sequel series, which I was very hesitant about.
I wasn't so much because they were doing an entirely new cast. I would have been if it had been, we're gonna do a sequel with the same cast and everything, because it would have kind of marred the characters a lot, probably.
See, you say that, but every time there was something in the sequel series, which we'll get to in a bit, but I just wanted to bring this up while I was thinking of it. Every time in the sequel series, which was The Legend of Korra, who was the next Avatar after Aang,
yeah,
they would do flashbacks every once in a while to Aang and his friends, especially during one particular event that became sort of...
Plot point.
Yeah, it was a very important plot point in...
And he's 40 years old.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
I really wanted there to be an entire episode showing them, because I wanted to see them. It didn't have to be an entire series. I just wanted to see them as they had developed, because you see in the later series that Toph, who's this blind girl, and in the series she seems like this very... Everyone kind of assumes in the original series that she's just this kind of helpless kid. She ends up forming her own police department within this city that Aang and Zuko end up forming, and becomes a very integral part of the policing and the authority in that city. I kind of wanted to see how she got there. I wanted to see how Aang had developed as an Avatar, because at the end of the first series we'd seen him become a fully realized Avatar, but he was still very new to a lot of the elements, especially one of the powers that he developed by the end of the series called Spirit Bending, that only really came up once at the end of the series and then becomes kind of a bigger part of Korra. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to see more of that. I wanted to see more of him, and it didn't need to be its own series, just an episode or something every once in a while, or
kind of like they did in the first series where they
when
had
you saw Roku.
Yeah, when they had an episode devoted to that backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And
what was really neat too? Just like Korra's 80 years later, is that correct?
I think it's...
Or 70?
I think it's 60 or 70, because Aang died in his 60s. He would have been about 10.
Yeah.
So I guess...
Or 12.
50.
I thought he was 12.
Was he 12 by the end of the series?
Know.
Either way, he wasn't that old when he died, because he'd been in the... He'd been frozen for so long, so that he did age a little bit in there, so...
Poor Aang. Anyway, so it's become a more... industrialized nation where
it's very
steam.
Early 20th century. It's not even I wouldn't even call it steampunk. The original series had more steam. It was very electric based and very sort of combustion engine based.
But you don't know if it's combustion based, what's the fuel.
Yeah.
True.
Right? and a lot of it kind of did look more steam-like. So it's hard to say.
I think it would have been electric based.
Really?
Yeah, because electric bending had
smoke.
become so.
What electric bending? There wasn't electric bending.
Yes, there was
Or the lightning bending.
Who did the lightning bending? You mean?
a lot of firebenders.
Yeah, not a lot of them. They don't.
Yeah,
know.
there was an entire factory of them shooting the lightning into the.
Oh yeah, you're right. I forgot. Yeah.
How else do you think they got the electricity?
True, but then
That was their power source.
There
Was
was,
electricity.
but how did they get the for example the cars to move?
Combustion engines,
With what fuel?
coal, oil.
Coal. Then if it's coal, then it's a steam based. That's what it would be, right?
Not necessarily.
I don't know. Anyway,
Awkward silence.
I think the original series was more steampunk than the.
it was, but steam from the. For example, the people that don't have bending powers, they still had electricity somehow. Maybe they get it from batteries. I have no idea.
Because the electric benders would charge the power plants. That was their entire shift. Was just sitting there bending electricity into storage facilities that they would use to power the entire city, and they'd probably siphon some of that off. I mean, they had film, they had radio, they had
all those sorts of things.
motor vehicles, they had planes, they had all kinds of different technology that was very early, 20th century Earth sort of. And it was fun to see it go from sort of a pre-Victorian, almost, I don't want to say Wild West, but that era of American development, what would have been the equivalent like Japanese, Chinese development, go from that to very 20th century sort of development.
And I think it was also weird that they're older. So Korra and her friends are older.
Yeah.
Did
And
we
that-
talk about this? I can't remember. This seems very familiar.
I'm getting deja vu like no tomorrow, actually.
Yeah. Have we talked about Korra?
I don't think we've talked about Korra. I've been meaning to talk about Korra. Korra was the spin-off series for anyone who wasn't following, and I mean, we've kind of been talking about it, but basically what happens is at the end of the first series, Aang defeats the Fire Lord, discovers spirit bending, and takes away the Fire Lord's spirit bending. Him and Zuko become sort of the leaders of the free world and work together to try and bring all of the cultures together. So you skip ahead 50, 60, 70 years, Aang has died of old age, and his spirit's been reborn in Korra, the new waterbender avatar, who has already, at the beginning of the series, she's already developed water, fire, and earthbending, and she's gone off with, I can't remember his name.
Tenzu?
Yeah, Tenzin, Aang's son,
Tenzin, that's right.
who is the primary earthbender,
Airbender.
airbender, to learn airbending. And gone off to Airbender Island and is now living in what they call Republic City, where all of the cultures have kind of meshed.
And so it looks like she's in around 17?
16 or 17,
18?
yeah.
Even older? It's hard to tell.
No, I think she's supposed to be 16.
Is she?
Yeah.
Okay.
But what I really like is that the original series kind of matured as it went along, as did the characters.
Yeah.
The tone got a bit darker and a little more serious. So by the time you get to Korra, it's an even, I don't want to say darker series, but it is a very much more mature series.
It is. But it also seems a bit more, I don't know.
Korra seemed a bit more rushed to me, actually.
Yeah. Especially the ending.
Yeah, but I also found that I didn't find all the characters
As
interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know whether that because I keep trying to think back to like my first watching the first season of Avatar, like of the first series of Avatar, and trying to figure out if I felt the same way, but I didn't latch on to the characters like I did in the first series.
To be fair, Avatar in its introduction of its characters took 3 seasons
Yes,
to bring
it
those
did.
characters
No,
along.
it's
So
true.
by the end of the first season, you only really had the 3 of them, and then some other people you'd met along the way, but weren't really as attached to. It was only really Sokka, Katara, and Aang that you really had emotional feelings towards. Whereas at the end of the first season of Korra, they've tried to fit an entire 3 seasons worth of character
Yes.
development into one. So you've got the 3 primary characters of Bolin, what's his brother's name? I'm
Zoe,
blanking.
Echo, they know it.
Anyways, the 2 brothers, the girlfriend,
Mako.
Mako,
Mako.
who I always thought was pronounced Mako, but
Mako?
no, it's not, because they obviously pronounce it Mako, but obviously named after the character who had voiced Iroh in the previous series.
Character?
Um,
He was a person.
No, the character is named after the person who
Okay.
voiced.
But anyway, even though, I mean, I didn't even, the girlfriend really wasn't all that interesting.
No.
I liked her.
Oh, I liked her, but it's just like, she's just another...
No, but again, like I said, it's a character that they just sort of, they've been rushing in all of this stuff and trying to get it along. So it's not like, I mean, in the original series, you have the three of them for the entire first season, then you introduce Toph in the second season.
Yes.
And we get an entire season to get used to Toph.
Yes.
And then Suki, which you introduced in the first season, comes back in the second season, becomes a primary character in the third season we've gotten used to. Zuko, who has been an enemy for the entire first two seasons, becomes an ally in the third season. So their family has grown, but we've gotten to know these people slowly.
Yeah.
Whereas in this series, you start with Korra and Tenzin. Within like the first episode, you meet Bolin and Mako, and then within like the first 5 or 6 episodes, you meet the girlfriend. Who all 5 of these people become very important people within the series, and you also have 2 different villain plots. Yeah. Which would have filled an entire 3 seasons, but they rushed and kind of finalized.
Well, at the same time, I think they were only expecting to do 10 episodes to begin with, and then they extended that. They actually, this Korra was not supposed to go on for more than 1 season.
No, but I'd still leave it... I wouldn't have finalized the plot so heavily because I would have... I don't know, I feel like even though they knew it was only going to go on for 10 or 13 episodes... the plot still felt, like you said, rushed. And it felt like the ending was just sort of, we're coming towards the end, we got to do something to wrap this up.
Right.
Which, to me, felt like you can put a cap on it, but you don't need to... Like, the way they finished the series, it finished so definitively. To the point where there's not much else room to grow. And they've already announced that they're doing, I think, another, 17 episodes.
Yeah.
And I mean, so
it'll be interesting to see where they take it. Because the thing is, I mean, I do have faith. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because it's, they did such a great job with the first series. And I mean, Korra was enjoyable. I did enjoy Korra, but it just didn't quite, it didn't quite strike as much of a chord with me as, say, The Last Airbender did.
Now, I liked it. I didn't like it as much as Last Airbender, but I liked it as its own series kind of thing, with ties to the previous series. But what I have an issue with, though, is that because they kind of tied everything up together, the way they tied it up, especially with the ending... Okay, we're going to go major spoilers here, guys, so if you really don't want to know the end of Korra, stop now.
I didn't know he played Tenzin.
Oh... He plays everybody.
He does.
Sorry. J.K. Simmons plays Tenzin.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways,
so
at the end of Korra, the entire plot of Korra is around a guy who is trying to overthrow the Benders.
Yeah.
There's an entire anti-bending movement, and they reveal about halfway through the series that he's capable of actually removing bending, which is very reminiscent of Aang's spirit bending. So there's this great fear about them actually being able to remove the bending, and at the end of the first season, he removes Korra's ability to bend. But she discovers that she still has the ability to airbend because she never really unlocked that before her power was removed. Now, at the end of the series, she ends up discovering her ability to connect to the spirit world, which opens up her spirit bending, and she's able to release all 4 elements again. And I really felt like that was kind of a mistake, because even if they'd finished off the villain plot, if they had it, they could have spent an entire season... I mean, she would have been fine as just an airbender, but if they had have left the season like that, but knowing that they might get a second season, I feel like that could have been an entire plot unto itself, discovering how she can bend, rediscovering how she can bend all the other elements and reconnecting with the spirit world. Because, I mean, that was an entire couple episodes in Aang's series, was how he discovered his ability to connect to the spirit world. And, I mean, they spent several seasons with his fear of connecting to the spirit world because his avatar state would kind of take over and become...
uncontrollable.
Yeah, it was just this mass destruction force that would sweep through and destroy everything. And he was very afraid of it. And I think they could have spent an entire season just focusing on that as she struggles to try and figure out how to rebend earth, fire, and water again. And then develop whatever villain plot you want to from there.
Just thinking, sorry.
Yeah, I'm just thinking too. As I said, it was. I mean, I did enjoy it, just as Manpan said.
Oh, yeah, I enjoyed it, too. I just felt like...
I watched them all. I did like the plot. I found the plot interesting. I found it very interesting. But as I said, and I know what it is the first season, but, and I know all the characters were rushed, but I still can't, it was harder to attach to the characters, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you spent a whole time and Mako wasn't in it, I don't think it would have mattered to me. Or if you spent like 2 or 3, not seasons, episodes without having, what's her name? The girlfriend.
The girlfriend? I can't remember her name either.
So we can't even remember the girlfriend's name.
Yeah. If you had what's her name? Where do we have it here? Anyway.
To be fair, she wasn't really as present or important. I mean, she did kind of become important towards the end, but it still was very much about Korra, whereas the other series were about all of the characters. Even though it was about Aang, all of the other characters were very vital and integral to his story and his plans towards the end to stop the Fire Nation.
But even Bolin, if you took him out.
I really liked Bolin. Bolin was probably my favorite character outside of Korra herself.
I
who I was
Tenzin,
really disappointed?
actually.
Yeah, I liked Tenzin.
I like Tenzin.
I liked his 2 little girls. The boy annoyed me, though. But what really disappointed me was the animals weren't nearly as developed in this series.
No.
And the animals were very, they were probably my favorite part of the original series, was watching Appa. I mean, there was the entire episodes where Appa was missing, and the entire emotional crux of it was
that was
where
more in
Appa,
the second and the third season too, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, that
it was entirely the second season.
They had
but,
a lot of a time to establish that it was really important to Aang, and you knew the stakes.
And then there was an entire episode just from Appa's point of view as he's trying to catch up with Aang,
which makes it
and there was almost no dialogue besides what humans would interact with him, and it was just that episode alone is one of my favorites because it's such an emotional.
Yeah, no, there is, and so there is more. I mean, here I guess they're thinking. I can imagine in the first season, you don't want to okay, let's have everybody emotionally connected to everybody, and it's impossible.
Yeah.
No, I understand that, but I mean, I feel like if they had to reduce the amount of characters and then had other characters,
I don't know, even the amount of characters, I don't know, because
they don't need more. It's just that, as I said,
No, that's what I mean. Is have fewer characters initially and build towards them. But I mean, I guess the problem is that they're working towards the end of a series that they don't know if they're going to get a second season. I still feel like you leave some room for yourself in the second season, which I know sucks if you never get a second season, and then you kind of leave on a bit of a cliffhanger, but at the same time,
I think for me,
leave some room to grow.
I knew where they wanted to go. I think I felt I knew where they wanted to go with Bolin, and it didn't seem to connect as well.
Where'd you think they wanted to go?
Well, just that type of character, right? He's the crazy kind of happy,
he's the comic relief.
The comic relief.
He plays very much the Sokka role, but he lacks the Sokka drive to be sort of a leader and a warrior.
Yes, but not only that, I think, it's hard to explain because Sokka, you felt, even though he was like him, you're right, with the leader and warrior, he was kind of important, right? Mm-hmm. He had a role to fill. Mm-hmm. Whereas Bolin, you almost feel like he's a bit more like...
He's just comic relief.
He is the third wheel.
He's like Gilligan. He just screws things up.
I mean, because Sokka, Sokka seemed just as important to Aang as everybody else in his life did, whereas Bolin, he's important to
I mean, you
Korra,
forget the guy's an earthbender, for that matter.
But he gets in trouble a lot. And
I mean, it shows it more near the end when they have to... spoiler again. Are we spoiling Korra as well?
We've already given the spoiler warning, so just go ahead.
Yeah. So, near the end when he has to fight near the airport and stuff like that. And that's, that's right.
I thought he was a great character during his role during that was great, but yes, he didn't have as much development as again Sokka would have. I mean, that's the best counterpart I think for him. Yeah. But I don't know. I still feel like.
Well, I mean, okay.
If they hadn't just focused on the three of them, and then Tenzin as sort of a peripheral character.
Yeah, like Iroh. Iroh probably didn't...
Iroh was my favorite character in the previous series, right? Because he was the one character who, first of all, was consistent throughout.
Yeah.
So even though he was serving the Fire Nation, it was always he had a sort of role of honor and integrity.
Yeah. And he doesn't become, and he becomes more endearing by the time you get
Yeah.
to season 2 and season 3.
Well, I mean, in Sokka, though, like, you think about it, he wasn't all that useful.
No,
I
no.
don't think. He screwed up a lot. He didn't get into trouble, maybe, but, you know, he would have, like, I know, especially later on, he had more of the skills of a warrior and a leader, and he wanted those skills from the first season onwards, but every time he tried to go and attack someone, he was the comic relief. The boomerang
Yes.
would, like, just sort of plink off someone's head, and...
Boomerang, you came back.
Oh, boomerang. That was one thing I loved about the series, is all the humor that they managed to get out of it.
Yeah, which Korra was, with the exception of Bolin and occasionally the pets, and I mean the kids sometimes too. It really kind of it was lacking in the.
I don't know,
Actually,
there's...
I think I found the kids, not the boy, but I found the girls more.
Oh,
Yeah.
they were
More
hilarious.
Oh, I love the girls.
Yeah.
The boy annoyed me.
The moment where she just says to whatever the girlfriend's name, she just goes, you know, Korra has a crush on Mako, or like, you know, Korra likes
And then
Mako,
Korra's
and then
just got
Korra's
framed behind her
face
head.
is just the perfect face, because we've all been in that situation. Not the particular one. I mean, just somebody saying something that you don't want them to say at that moment.
And you're utterly embarrassed and just frozen in horror.
Yeah.
That happens to you daily, though, man.
It's
Pants.
because I'm friends with you.
And actually, those two little
Can we
girls
talk
reminded
about
me
the
of
last
your
time you were
girls.
uncomfortable?
What? Dinner? When was the last time I was uncomfortable with you? What was the one you were going to say?
Oh, I probably shouldn't admit it on radio here. Podcast.
Let's say after. Let the audience make it up.
Anyway, I guess you could say I enjoyed Korra. I did enjoy watching
Yeah.
Korra. And when they come out again, I'll watch it again. But, you know, I don't think it was as... I mean, maybe, but you never know. Maybe it will become more endearing as they develop everything. So you never know.
That's my chief complaint with it, is that it's going to continue as a series, but I feel like it's kind of finished already. And that was the one thing that really kind of bugged me, was that I know they had to finish the first season because they weren't sure if they were going to get a second season, but I still feel like just try to find some way to continue somehow.
What you doing, man pants?
Just nothing.
Are you maybe checking the views of a certain YouTube page?
Maybe.
Maybe. Manpans and I think we mentioned this before, is that we wrote a musical for NaNoWriMo. And we're on episode 2. And I'm sorry to interrupt you,
That's
but
all right.
this is what Manda does. Every 15 minutes, she checks the views on our episodes.
So Manpans, what's the views on the 3 Geeks in a Pod video?
I'm not part of that channel, so I can't look at the views every time.
You know the password.
No,
You
I
know
don't.
it's the same password.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know.
Do you know the password?
No.
Oh, she doesn't know the password.
Okay, I'll share that with you afterwards.
Yeah. Anyway, so she checks the
Not in
views.
the Dropbox either.
Checks
You're like,
the
go
views.
check the Dropbox. There's nothing in the Dropbox because it wasn't my Dropbox. It
We'll
was
add
just
you
the
to
secret
everything.
Errol James
Well,
Dropbox.
It is. We put pictures of me in there.
Oh, goody.
It's in the folder marked "Do not open ever" for any reason. Pandora's box.
Anyway, so yeah, that's what Manda does, and it's really funny because, you know, I can always be rest assured that if I need to know how we're doing and any comments that come, Manda knows them all.
Sorry, we were talking about Korra. I'm sorry, I derailed that.
Okay.
No, we were ending. We're saying.
Oh,
that,
are
you
we
know,
ending?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I was just my only. I like Korra. I don't like it as much as I liked Avatar, but I still feel like it could have been redeemed if it hadn't been for the last 5 minutes of the show. If they had have just
Let
left
her-
that alone, they could have gotten an entire another season out of that. They're going to continue anyways, and I'll see where they're going to go. But I still feel like that was a mistake, was to tie up that storyline.
Well, the
itself.
only reason they did, and I am defending them here, just like, if you're told you have 20 episodes to do this whole story arc and then the series ends, well, they're going to have to wrap it up. And then you don't anticipate that it'll do so well that, you know, the studio might say, oh, you know what? We're going to renew you for a second season.
That is the nature of studio oriented.
I know, but what I'm saying
is that you expect that you're only going to get the first season. You may not even get you may only get a 13 episode run, but in case you do, you leave it hanging just a little bit.
But I would have preferred that to a cliffhanger and then no second season.
Well, I'm not saying a cliffhanger. I'm just saying don't resolve everything. Like, as it stands, the villain plot's done. So I don't even know what they're going to do for a villain plot for the second season.
We'll see. I'm interested.
It'd be really interesting if they decide to go 20 years later.
Yeah. Oh, so that's about it then. I guess we're kind of out of time. Because we've been talking.
Keep going.
Well, we've been talking for over an hour.
Yeah, but I always cut these things down.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, fun. So we might not have the part where Errol plays with a barrette. I don't know what he's doing exactly, but he's fascinated by it.
By the way, our video has 31 views. That's right, 31.
I shared the video.
Okay, we can share it again. And again and again.
This makes me not want to do it.
Errol's really perplexed by that.
He's so... Yeah.
It was broken.
I
think you broke it.
I did not break it.
But it's all fixed after you were playing with it.
What? Anyway, we should go.
Thank you very much for listening. And check out Korra, and definitely check out Avatar if you haven't seen it. Do not check out the movie.
No,
that's just a way. You know what? One of my favorite... It's a movie that's so bad that you can't actually watch it ironically to enjoy it. But there is one part that always makes me laugh. There's a little bit when they're inside a camp where they've got all the prisoners.
Oh my god.
And there's a dance sequence where there's like about 15 guys and they're doing this whole build up to do some earth bending. Mm-hmm. But then the rock just kind of goes...
Yeah.
And it's this great bit of like 5 minutes of them doing this elaborate dance, and just the rock kind of just
flip. That's funny.
It's hilarious. It makes me laugh every time.
No, my favorite part of that was when it took Aang to, because it was or Ong. Sorry, he's Ong in that movie, and
that's awesome.
When he goes into this, it's a prison. The Firebenders are holding all the Earthbenders prisoner. And it takes Aang to tell all the Earthbenders,
you're standing on a rock.
Standing on Earth. You can use this. It was mimicking the episode where they're on that like oil rig.
I know.
Yeah.
I know what.
And but in the movie they're just in a forest on some dirt.
Yeah, one of the best analogies I ever heard of that was, okay, we're going to take you guys to a prison, but it's a prison full of guns and arrows and all kinds of other stuff. Just don't use that stuff. Just forget about that. You'll be fine.
Aang like gives them this big inspirational speech, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we can do this." Oh, so bad.
That movie's terrible.
I haven't seen it because I hear it's so bad.
It's pretty bad.
Yes.
Oh, anyway, won't talk anymore about that.
My name is not Manpans.
My name is not Ja-Mez.
And I'm not Errol.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.
Thanks for listening, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to us on iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter at 3geeksinapod, that is the number 3, or you can like us on Facebook. Get all the news and updates about podcasts and videos and other announcements in our blog, 3geeksinapod.wordpress.com. Again, that is the number 3. Stay in touch with friends and fans in the forums at our sister site, debsanderrol.com. Or if you want to contact us directly, email us at 3geeksinapod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, guys, and we will see you next time.